I always say it was sort of a war zone with no training. There was so much chaos and so many things that I just would never wish upon anybody to see at all. Even like sharing with friends and family, there are just certain things people don't need to know what people were there that they saw. I was on my way up and everybody was running down. And as somebody who used to go to Manhattan every day, there was always something strange going on. You know, you were pretty tough. You remember the store Sam Goody?
Sure.
Okay, so no longer around, but I have a little soft heart for Sam Goody because there were people running everywhere. And I said, God, what is going on? There must have been a fight or something. I put myself up against Sam Goody and everybody's running past. There was a woman screaming her head off and she was like, we're gonna die. And I was like, shut up, you're scaring everybody. As I had her on my arm and she couldn't even walk, the other plane was coming over our heads. So I said, what the heck was that? She fell. I mean, it's terrible to say, but she just passed out. And I'm like, I can't deal with you right now. So as you can imagine, it hit the sound barrier. So you heard the plane come before it hit. Two gentlemen jumped on me and they said, ma'am, get down. And did you ever see in a movie where cinematography slows everything down? I thought it was for the purpose of somebody watching that, but it actually happens where there's a chemical that's released from your brain. It slows everything down. So everything got super slow for me. So I think I could take in what was happening. So I didn't, have a stroke or a panic attack. Sped back up and these two gentlemen said, you got to get down. And I said, go where? And they jumped on top of me and it went black. I remember at one point looking up and thinking, why are there birds flying around? And there were people jumping. It was a horrific experience. What I like to say is the sky's a little bluer because of that day and the grass is a little bit greener. It made me appreciate people on a very different level and just sort of use that as, hey, listen, today's not a bad day.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Awesome Wholesaler Experience podcast, where we look into the many facets of the job, the career, and the lifestyle of investment and insurance product wholesaling. I'm your host, the creator of the Awesome Wholesaler Experience, and yours truly, Awesome Mike. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. Have another special guest on the show today, one of our own, at least formerly, and boy, does she fit the bill. So I'm sure you're going to have a great time listening and tuning into this episode. Let's get started. So Deanna Farrugia is the founder and CEO of Perspicacity Group, where she and her team, they use their Better Communications Strengths and Values Profile tool to help advisors create deeper client connections and turn them into clients for life. Now, Perspicacity also teaches advisors how to become master public speakers, able to effectively communicate and leave their audiences wanting more. Now, prior to founding, I can say Perspicacity, right? But I can't say founding, right? Prior to founding Perspicacity, Deanna was Vice President of Sales. Yes, I said it. Let me say it again. Vice President of Sales, and we all know what that means. She was a wholesaler, where she raised over $5 billion, allegedly, for some of the nation's top asset management firms, such as Columbia Threadneedle, my Minnesota peeps, hope you're doing well, Fidelity, and OppenheimerFunds. Now, Deanna is also a certified investment management analyst. That's that little CIMA designation, the new one. It's kind of like CFP 2.0, maybe. I don't know. She's a certified strengths coach, a certified disc coach. That's not disc golf. That's the personality profile, by the way. And of course, she's a certified public speaker. Welcome to the show, Deanna. How are you this morning? Thanks for being on.
Thank you. Awesome, Mike. I am great, actually. So I just first want to say thanks so much for having me on this show. I don't know anybody that really takes the time to put a spotlight and elevate these, the word wholesaler works, but I think high-performing executives are really what they should be called. So I think on behalf of all of the wholesalers and high-performing executives, just thanks. Thanks for just giving us a platform to kind of speak our minds and tell our truths and our stories and our just everything that we're delivering. So thank you.
Gosh, that makes a guy feel great. So I appreciate you saying that, Deanna. And with that, we'll close. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in.
And that was a paid program.
What do they say? You're only going to go down from here. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. It's really definitely this is started as a passion project, and I'm really lucky to be able to have this show and to have my platform where I try to help wholesalers to be awesome in life and in business. One of the things you call it a high performance executive. Say it again. Did you have a quote for that one? What do you
Yeah,
call it?
just a high performing executive,
You know
and
what I call them?
what's that?
So, and I'll take you back, and I could tell this story, and use up our whole time here, but I won't. But there was a dark moment, in our pre-show. We talked about the worst day as a wholesaler. This might be one of them.
I love these stories, by the way. I think
Driving,
I told you the worst day as a wholesaler makes the best stories told.
yeah, driving uphill both ways in the snow in February in Cleveland to a seminar where I had to pay for it, and I was the only guy that took up the right amount of time. Everybody else went on and on and on, et cetera, et cetera. Felt terrible. Got to the restaurant / bar next to the hotel where I was staying that night. Walked in with a little chip on my shoulder, ordered a beer. Bartender says, "So, what do you do?" And what do you think a wholesaler normally says in that situation? What would you have said?
Back then or now? Be- Back then, I think I would explain what a wholesaler actually does versus saying a wholesaler. Because when you say a wholesaler, that could mean 7,000 things.
People don't know what it means. So
No.
I looked at her, and she, it's a bartender's gal. And I look at her and I go, "I'm a product whore."
Oh,
Because that's what I felt like that night.
imagine I said that. That wouldn't go very well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, investment product whore. Anyways, the lowness though in my voice and my body positioning, it was disturbing. So that night I went on an epic journey. I met some other fellows that were part of an advanced marketing group, and by the morning I had come up with a better title, and I kind of refined it a little bit. And by the end of the week, I came back with what I used currently, is that I am a spokesman for an investment company. So as a wholesaler,
Perfect.
yeah, what do? We're in indirect sales. We're not direct sales. Nobody's writing a wholesaler a check. And you do this public speaking, which you're going to, you have a great platform for teaching that. And you do build relationships, and you are a brand person. But to say that you're a spokesman or a spokeswoman for Fidelity, oh my gosh. People sit back and, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Tell me more." It really did a lot for my career. It lifted my self-esteem. So that's a gift to everyone, and feel free to use that as well. I like your, high performance executive too. And I think that our wholesaler brothers and sisters definitely are worthy of our effort, to invest in them and try to help. So appreciate you for doing that. Hey, let me ask you this question though.
Sure.
Before we get too far into the show, um, why in the world did you name your firm Perspicacity? Now, I know what it means, okay? It's like the quality of having ready insight into things, and then shrewdness. Now, you're from, New England, area. Pennsylvania's kind of in New English-ish, but you kind of get that little, mode of operations. But why'd you do it? There's got to be more to it than just, you flipped up at a dictionary and that was the first word that jumped out at you.
Well, I do love the story because I needed to have meaning behind the passion that I have for this industry. Not only did I love being a wholesaler, and after I really realized what we did for a living, I would call myself the ambassador of the investment firm I work for. So, I said I want to have something with a lot of intention, but I want something around a little bit more of, what does it mean? I want it to be so meaningful. And when I looked up the word experience just sounded blah. So I looked up other words, and perspicacity did come up, and I love the word. I loved it more because I didn't know what it meant. So I had to look it up. I said, what does it mean? And it just spoke to exactly what it is. And shrewdness to me is really being bold and being able to tell somebody how it is the way it should be. So perspicacity just stuck. And it's funny, it's a big conversation piece now. I have people that say, "Deanna, change the name." I can't even say it. And I said, well, you know what I love about being the CEO of my own company now? That's actually your problem, not mine. And my joke is, when people have to Google it, they will actually look at what perspicacity actually means and they'll remember it. And let me tell you something. When my 9-year-old runs around my house and she sings the perspicacity song, and it's perspicacity, perspicacity, if you need help, my mom's there. And when she can say it, listen, there's going to be such connections with that word. It'll be a household verb, I believe, pretty soon.
I'm a fan. I love it. And in fact, you can imagine the one or two people, maybe 1 or 2,000 that tell me, "Awesome, Mike." Really? Awesome, Mike. and I tell them, hey, Magic Mike was already taken. So, you know, then,
Correct.
but then I know that they remember it. They
Yeah.
remember that that memorability is key, not only for success, in life, but especially as a wholesaler, being memorable. And if you break down the word awesome, Deanna, it doesn't say awe everyone. It just says
Oh,
awe.
awesome.
Yeah. So perspicacity doesn't need to please everyone. In fact, it's probably good if you really irritate half the people, you might get elected president,
I'm in.
right?
Oh.
All right. So perspicacity's out there. You're getting it done, but let's kind of take it back. Okay.
Sure.
Who is Deanna? I mean, where'd you come from? How was it growing up? And tell us about your upbringing, and really with an angle on, like, who was your mentor? Who drove you to get into, executive sales and then have this entrepreneurial, bandwidth as well?
Well, thanks so much for asking that. So, I didn't grow up in a Norman Rockwell painting, if you will. It was a bit more of a conflicting childhood, lessons learned, and being in Generation X, as you can imagine, we were on our own quite a bit to our own vices, number one, and like, getting all of the survival skills that we actually needed. And when someone always told me as a kid I couldn't do something, I did it better than they can ever have dreamed. So that's sort of the motivation, right? We didn't grow up with a lot of money. We grew up in, being very minimalist, just, kind of just making the bills. And that's something I always knew I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be at the mercy of a bill. I wanted to always make sure I was above it. I actually, believe it or not, wanted to be an FBI agent. And then, yeah, so I always thought, the mastering of people and figuring things out. I'm a natural restorative, so I love to fix things. And then we had a half day program in our high school. I don't know if you when you went to high school back in how long was that ago, Mike?
Back in the 1900s.
Sure. We had a half day program, and I got this job at a company called High Yield Management. If you can believe there was a company called High Yield Management back in 1992. And I said, this is exciting. I love this. If may I say the word, it was sexy. It was like making money and having conversations and being able to be in front of people and making a difference and making other people money. So as you can imagine, the FBI sort of fell by the wayside, and I found myself in the typical boiler room. So I could say this now because it's about 2 decades later, and everything you thought of a boiler room, it was. I was a spectator, not a participant, because I was too young to be a participant. But um, High Yield was shut down after the mortgage backed derivative debacle. The tape and everything. And back then, people had their books, and books were stolen in the middle of the night. And I still will plead the fifth if anybody asks me if I was the getaway car. But learned a lot, right? So learned a lot from a lot of what people were doing wrong, what people were doing right. And then I entered into the mutual fund world. And from there, I just became a complete student of what this industry had. I always sat back and just soaked in everything that I can learn so that I can maximize it and deliver it back out the right way. And the one way I could do that, Mike, I got to tell you, is wholesaling, because you make your own success path, right? So you have to be as intentional as you can be as intentional as you want, or non-intentional. That's actually, you're the only meaning of your own success.
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Interrupt you, please. Sorry to interrupt, but I think as any great wholesaler, you can have your own show here.
Sorry.
What was up? What was up with the FBI recruiting back in the day? I also wanted to be an FBI agent. They must have had some great stuff going on to recruit. I don't know if there was a great TV show. There was no TV hero, but I wanted to be an FBI agent. My karate coach actually was an FBI agent. And it's funny that you also wanted to be one. But then once you saw the pay scale, I was like, wait a minute, how am I going to be able to survive on that? Anyways, it was interesting. And so it's kind of a similar path. Did you have any kind of a role model, though, or a mentor that kind of flipped the light switch on for you to make it so you could be aware of high yield? And maybe who was that? Or did you read some books about something? Or was it just the thrill of the action?
It was the thrill of the action, So I did have some naysayers in my life. I remember one conversation that I was anchored to is my stepfather telling me, "Oh, you could never do it," and I'm like, "Ding! Oh, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it better than you can even ever imagine," And as I just got into, I love that I can actually have a personality and make money and be in front of people and not behind a desk. Um,
Yep. It's interesting you say that you had someone that was a naysayer and you turned it around and used it as fuel.
yes.
Do you think you would be as successful as you are today and that you have been in your life if you didn't have that naysayer? If you actually had the, soft cotton candy life in those developmental years?
I would hope the answer would be yes, because I would find something that would feed my motivator to be as successful as I was, or am, I should say. So there's always got to be something that you got to, jump a hold on, or whatever motivates you. So whatever's going to motivate me to be who I am, I think it would always be there, maybe just a different path.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. You have a 9-year-old. I have 4 kids of my own, and you want to make it so that their life is easier than maybe what you had it. But I often see that it's actually detrimental, and then the kids are growing up, and yeah, they've got nice things, but they don't take care of it. If you buy them a car, they don't take care of it, and you end up being a warlord in order to make them take care of it, which defeats the purpose of the entire process. And it was hard to do, but I made my oldest son, buy his own car.
Sure.
And oh my gosh, the howling, and everybody else that he knows got a brand new car for their graduation or their birthday, some of them. And I said, you know what, that's too bad, man, too bad, sorry about your luck. And my gosh, his car now is pristine, it's beautiful, it's it's his first love, really. And I don't think he would have had that. So I know as a wholesaler, we get paid pretty well, but we're actually not around.
Yes.
Did you grow up in a family? You said you spent some time alone, like a Gen X kid pretty much does. But did you like that, or did you find yourself kind of you know longing for that, or was that something you were used to because of your family situation? That
I think being alone makes you creative,
okay,
right? So I think that always constantly being entertained doesn't spark any creativity in you. So I was always that creative kid, and making sure that, first of all, making sure everybody was happy too, because I just love to entertain and love to be in front of folks and helping people. But no, I feel as though because I was alone, it made me want to be a better person. And you had asked a very poignant question, and that's who is my mentor, right? Um, Looking back, I can say my mentor is always who I wanted to be professionally in 5 or 10 years. So it was a collection of a professional puzzle. So I always aim to be the better person professionally and personally, so that I can make sure I was always on the right track. I always knew where I wanted to go, and I would just build my own path that way.
well, you know, um, I didn't find it. I didn't kill anybody to look for it, but when you were actually a wholesaler, how did you get the call to be an wholesaler? I know you were an Oppenheimer internal wholesaler.
Hmm.
Um, how'd you get into the business though? From high yield, you met wholesalers. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, so after high yield, I had a short stint at Mainstay, got hired as one of the inbound representatives, loved it, loved the conversations, loved the drive of it, and then always knew I wanted to be a wholesaler. Like I just said, when I was an internal, I always knew I wanted to be an external. There was no question. There was no question I was ever going to be one. So when I left Mainstay, when I was over at OppenheimerFunds, they had this new channel called e-wholesaling or virtual wholesaling. And if that had to be my stepping stone to get out of the office, that was what it was going to be. And I was always going to be better at it than anybody else. So I created scripts for everybody on our team. It was so new. It was meetings like we're having right now, but think about it like, about 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's all I was going to ask you about that. I mean, the internet wasn't even around yet. So what are you talking about? What were you doing? Smoke signals, ravens, hand
um,
puppets? What were you
it
doing?
was, buffering,
Oh,
but
geez.
so what they did, and this is where I always have like a soft spot for Oppenheimer funds, even though they were just sold, and the Oppenheimer funds is no longer around. I still have shirts from that long ago, but don't tell anybody. So they developed this e-wholesaling group, and we covered 7 states, and we started being on the plane on Mondays and coming home on Fridays, and we're doing virtual meetings. And it was for us to create this most amazing channel, to create a different way of communicating. And I always feel whatever it was for in wholesaling is making the client, no matter who it is, feel like they're in a special box, right? So I created scripts for our whole team, and we would say, congratulations. You're in this new, amazing, fascinating program. And you not only have a wholesaler, you actually have a very intentional wholesaler. We can actually do computer meetings at any given moment that we can. And it worked. It was so unbelievably fun. And but traveling 7 states in the South, by the way, which you can imagine, you can see my personality, right? Me in a suit walking on the streets of Alabama. I can do a whole show with you with just stories about that, how I didn't really belong.
You didn't like sweet tea?
It wasn't that.
Barbecue?
Can I share a quick story with you?
Yeah.
A couple of minutes. So
let me get my banjo out. Wait a minute. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I remember when this was 14 years ago, and I was pregnant with my first. And so Bob, we're going to call him Bob, right, from Alabama, said, Deanna, what are you going to do, when you have your baby? And I said, well, I'm going to be the professional, purposeful human. And we found my parenting plan is for us to get like either a nanny or a daycare center, whatever it may be. And he goes, Deanna, if you don't mind me saying, I said, oh boy, yes, Bob, well, what's going to come next? And he said, that's what's wrong with the world today. He said, back in the Revolutionary War. And Mike, he actually went back to the Revolutionary War, and he said, it ruined the world. And I said, really? And he goes, yes. He said, men had to go to war and women had to work and children were never parented the same. And it ruined the world. I said, let me tell you something, Bob. I said, here's your lucky day. I said, because remember how you said, hope you don't mind me saying, you might want to stick that in your pocket and don't say that again. I said, but here's your lucky day, because I am not offended by ignorance or stupidity. And I was like, so by you telling me that, I am not offended, because if I was offended by ignorance or stupidity, I'd be offended, but I'm not. So just take my little word of advice, stick that in your pocket, Bob, and that's maybe one of the main differences of female wholesaling versus, some of the gentlemen that are walking around.
I think it's also geography. And, I was in the Army for a decade. And
thank you, by the way. Thank you for serving.
It was an honor to serve, and thanks for saying that, by the way. And I did a lot of training down in Georgia, so I'm very familiar with the campus of Auburn University, and I understand who Bear Bryant is at the University of Alabama. Yeah. And I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but the war is not over yet.
No.
With those folks, and
no.
I really appreciate their stick-to-itiveness. But I think that, like evolution happens, times move on, things change. And if you can't embrace these changes, you become a victim to them.
Sure.
Like online meetings, like having the ability to use a technology that's new and innovative. And I started wholesaling in 2002, and we didn't have that as a platform. It was still, the BlackBerry was like, oh, you were awesome. To have a tablet, I remember when we got the first tablet, it was like, wow, the thing spun around, stood, wow, I need that. That's, and so it's interesting to see that the mindset, not only as a woman is regarded. It's very interesting, though. We want to talk a lot about your wholesaling career and how you got down there. So you were an Oppenheimer internal. But that was where were you at then? Were you in Pennsylvania? Were you in?
So no, I was in New York City.
Oh, New York City, a little place. I heard of it.
Yeah, so a couple people in
there. Yeah. So, that was around 9/11.
We were in the building in 9/11. Yes, we're on the 34th floor of 9/11. And that's another reason why I have a very soft spot for the most amazing management, leadership, friends you can imagine at that company, because the product didn't mean anything. The people meant so much. And I remember, I think David Alger, am I getting that right? So we had a manager that came over from Alger, and what OppenheimerFunds did is they literally ripped up their contract and said, "Go back to Alger. They need your help." That just gives me such a lump in my throat to know their professionalism and purpose, and it just made this country come together. And that's why I even look at the flag behind you, and it just gives me such a sense of heart. That was a true American company.
Yeah, yeah, and what an interesting time. It's interesting that it sometimes takes a tragedy to rally, to rally the troops and to kind of peel back all the fluff on things that really don't matter. Um, can you talk about, like, what was it like? What was 9/11 like? Just briefly, if you don't.
Yeah, I always say it was sort of a war zone with no training, right? So there was so much chaos and so many things that I just would never wish upon anybody to see at all, and even like sharing with, friends and family. There are just certain things people don't need to know what people were there that they saw, from I was on my way up, and everybody was running down, and as somebody who used to go to Manhattan every day, there was always something strange going on. You weren't exactly, you were pretty tough, and you were pretty, I guess, callous to sort of the stuff. So remember the do you remember the store Sam Goody?
Sure.
Okay, so no longer around, right? But I have a little soft heart for Sam Goody because there were people running everywhere, and I said, God, what is going on? There must have been a fight or something. And I put myself up against Sam Goody, and everybody's running past. If I could just add a little bit of humor here, which I don't even know if it's appropriate to interject, but there was a woman screaming her head off, and she was like, "We're gonna die!" And I was like, "Shut up! I was like, you're scaring everybody." And as I had her on my arm and she couldn't even walk, the other plane was coming over our head. So I said, "What the heck was that?" She fell. I mean, it's terrible to say, but she just passed out. And I'm like, I can't deal with you right now. So as you can imagine, it hit the sound barrier. So you heard the plane come before it hit. So two gentlemen jumped on me and they said, "Ma'am, get down." And did you ever see in a movie where cinematography slows everything down? I thought it was for the purpose of somebody watching that. But it actually happens where there's a chemical that's released from your brain. It slows everything down. So everything got super slow for me. So I think I could take in what was happening. So I didn't, have a stroke or a panic attack. Um, Sped back up, and these two gentlemen said, "You got to get down." And I said, "Go where?" And they jumped on top of me, and it went black. And, people, I remember at one point looking up and thinking, why are there birds flying around? And there were people jumping. It was a horrific, horrific experience. What I like to say is the sky's a little bluer because of that day, and the grass is a little bit greener. Um, it made me appreciate people on a very different level, and just sort of use that as, hey, listen, today's not a bad day. you know, I mean, obviously there's some negative that came along with that, and having anxiety and nervousness, but it really tests your resilience. And covering 7 states at that point, I had to get on a plane. And for some reason, I used that as, I was scared of flying. I wasn't scared of flying. So I actually had to learn how planes flew so I wouldn't be nervous up there anymore. So it tests your strengths. And I don't want to say I'm thankful for that, but it made me who I am. And I love to walk around as my own brand ambassador and said, you can, I've been tested to the ultimate test, because I was also in Boston, believe it or not, during the bombing. So my family's like, "Can you not go away anywhere? Can you just stay the hell home?" So I can explain what a bad day really means.
Wow, I appreciate you sharing that story, and I admire your resilience and the can do and drive on attitude. So I appreciate you doing that. Let's talk about those 7 states. So how was it when you got the call? You're like, all right, this is a suitcase, it's a rollerboard. Okay. You're not going to, I don't know if you check baggage or whatever. I never checked the bag. I didn't have much hair product to mess with, but it just takes too long waiting for the bag. You want to get to your next meeting and all that. But tell us about your first day on the ground, boots on the ground as a real external wholesaler.
You know what I remember? I just remember Rand McNally being my best friend. So
Yes.
GPS, get the hell out of here. Oh, you should be thankful you have one of those. Like, I was like, in Tennessee, would need to get to Alabama. Georgia was just a couple hours away, with like a map and everything, and hoping the map was even updated, so it was fun. It was challenging. It was really understanding who people are and who the heck I am, like I remember waking up in some mornings looking at the phone just so I can see what the area code was because I didn't know what state I was in. Like, is this really happening? But I will tell you, I met strangers, and by the end of the night, they became my friends. And that was like, I remember being in jazz clubs by myself, and at the end of the night, just like hugging and giving like friendship kisses goodbye, and just saying, "Wow, we learned so much about that person." And you really don't know about people until you're alone, and you have to master the ability to listen. So it was awesome. And then, having kids, couldn't do the 7-state thing anymore. So that's where my journey led me to Fidelity.
Yeah, I echo what you're saying there. It's a unique thing. It's not for everyone, you know. But I've really enjoyed my travels, and I miss them. I haven't been wholesaling now for a year now, and I do miss the buzz and the the energy and even the adventure. At one point I had 17 states. Think about that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was a high travel business, and I embraced it. I enjoyed it, and not everyone can. Do you have advice for the wholesaler that might be feeling a little bit of pressure or stress in their life because of call it territory fatigue?
If I could just put it out there to everybody that's listening, is I would love a phone call from anybody that hears this. I've been talking to so many wholesalers about their professional purpose. Why are they doing this anymore? And those are two very big things. What is your why? Why are you out there? And what is your professional purpose? And it has to be um, something you're still enjoying, I remember, and I'll just give the pivotal moment that I had why I stopped wholesaling. But first of all, thank you to everybody that's still wholesaling and still a road warrior and still enjoying it. Just make sure you're checking in to make sure you're not at that point of burnout, because when you're at that point of burnout, it's really hard to climb back up to try to find something better, but if you're gonna retire as a wholesaler, God bless you, and let's share some amazing stories. So yeah, I would say you have to build your personal brand statement. And I've been doing this with a lot of wholesalers as of late, as a courtesy, just because I understand the job and I love it. And what I mean by that is let the investment managers deliver the alpha. What you're delivering is the premium above the standard of the regular wholesaler that's walking in. You have to be like, here's my pearls, right? So I was always the woman coming in with her pearls and her purpose. I rarely talked about product. Obviously, it was necessary. I talked about what I had passion for, and that was to elevate their business and their practice. I never wanted to walk in as, hey, look at my small cap fund. I never wanted to do that. You have to walk in and be above the standard, but be above the standard for something you're going to enjoy. And I can even back up. I never tell somebody to do something that I've never done. So my pivotal moment where I stopped wholesaling was I stopped understanding what my purpose was. And I had a $51 million trade. And as you can imagine, with a $320 million goal, that's a damn good day for a wholesaler. And I was so excited for 11 minutes, or 11 seconds, I should say. So 11 seconds, I should be celebrating with champagne. And I said, what happened? My purpose changed and my direction might have changed. So I did this personal inventory every day, if not every day, once a week. I would say, what did I love about today? And what did I not like about today? And it became about being on the same side as the advisor and not really being that product pusher anymore. I was so more involved in the people. So I started, like you had mentioned before, I started getting certifications. So I got certified as a StrengthsFinder coach, also a DISC and motivators coach. And I would be in front of these meetings, and they went from 20 people attending in a Merrill Lynch in Florham Park to 55 to 60, because I got up in front of them and I said, we have product we can talk about, right? But what I'm going to deliver to you is something very different. And I know every wholesaler comes in here and says they're delivering something different, but I got certified to be a StrengthsFinder coach. If we find relevancy within your practice, I will coach your team for free.
Well,
And it just
let me
changed
ask you.
conversations.
Yeah, let me ask you. So a couple things come up. One is that the demise of a great wholesaler? Let me kind of frame it. You're out there, you're getting after it. You don't know what you're doing. You're got Rand McNally, and literally every state you need a new one because they're only so big, and you got to get the details, and you're getting after it. And then all of a sudden, you have this kind of inflection point to where now it's more. It's about more than the product.
Yeah.
It sounds cliche. A lot of people say it, but every time I've seen this, it leads to the end of your wholesaling career when you lose focus on what it is that you're actually there to do. And this is maybe from a manager standpoint. Yeah, are you there to provide extra value? Great. Why? So you can get more sales. Are you there to be a true champion, to the advisor and help them out? Yeah. Why? So you can get more sales. So
Sure.
is that little bit of a sea change kind of a warning or a red flag, that you're not focusing on what is really your purpose, which is to make more sales?
Yeah, and I think it's also you have to understand at a pivotal moment, you've got 20, 30 more years in your career. So is it sustainable? Are you really enjoying it? And you can do it side by side, right? Where, I could have been a coach and a wholesaler at the same time. I just became the top heavy part became coaching and the product became less. But you can marry the two and cross pollinate two amazing things in your life. That's what I did.
It's a delicate balance, and in the coaching that I do and in the trainings that I do, if you don't see it and plan it, it can be that wave that you want to surf that you just didn't see, and either it passes you by or it ends up crushing you because of a unexpected divorce because you weren't paying attention to the home life, or the financial disruption because you had a $51 million trade and you didn't realize that that's not going to happen every month or every week. But for some reason, you got a big check and you went out, and not you, but went out and maybe weren't comfortable with it. So you did poor decision making with it. Let's get into this a little bit. I quote you when I say that, you say that talent doesn't leave bad teams. We know that as wholesalers and financial advisors, there's a lot of turnover in the business, whether it's an advisor going to a different broker dealer or going RIA, but also wholesalers. You see a lot of wholesalers changing up, whether it's the company changed their comp plan or they got a territory cut or they lost their internal. Talent doesn't leave bad teams. You say that talent leaves bad or poor cultures. Tell me what is, and I can understand what that means a little bit, but tell me, like, so what, or how do we avoid falling into that trap and losing our best talent?
So if I can just give you a positive story about a friend of mine, I'll leave her name out of it. She's with one of the top firms. I mean, she's just an amazing professional. She's a wholesaler, and we talk quite often. Every single time we talk, the first thing she says, or maybe the second thing she says, is how much she loves her manager. And that's why she's been there for 14 years. He makes her feel important. He leads by example. He's a leader, not a boss. What I've found is, if I could just really speak to some of these managers, please don't manage up. Manage your folks and motivate them, but dive in and find out what makes them people. Don't make them a spreadsheet. When someone doesn't feel validated or valued, I should say, they're looking for the next opportunity. I would rather have somebody stay where they are and deliver something that means something to them, and just really make them feel super valued. And when you stop being valued, you stop paying attention. And my biggest saying, and I just wrote a book, by the way, it's called the Life Strength book, One Lesson at a Time, is you've got to set the table. You've got to bring something to the table to have other people want to set it for you.
Dino,
So
I think our technology might have blipped there. Say the name of the book again, please.
it's called the Life Strengthening book, One Lesson at a Time.
Life
So
Strength
that's
book.
coming out. Yeah. So again, like,
Wholesalers, if you would like a copy of that book, DM your boy Awesome Mike, and I got you. And I'll even try to put some peer pressure and ask Deanna to sign it for you. So
love it.
when that book comes out, Deanna, we've got your first couple batches already sold.
Thank you.
You do mention about, being different and being unique, and it's not enough anymore to simply meet with, like for the financial advisor, to meet with their other advisors. That's expected. And it's not just a new thing to meet with family and next generation. It's not
Sure.
availability. It's not all these things. Well, in a wholesaler's world, what is expected? And maybe do you have a couple of golden nuggets or silver bullets that you can share that really took your practice above and beyond, or maybe that you've seen do that as well?
Yeah, I think sometimes financial advisors need you to take the wheel from them, and really put them in the direction where they belong. And what I mean by that is, as wholesalers, we have so much in our bag to offer them, right? Just at one point, just put the bag down and really do the 75-25. Listen 75% of the time and speak 25% of the time, and really actively engage in the advisor. So there are four things. There are four ways a wholesaler can be, and four ways an advisor can be, and they're interconnected. Meaning they're either engaged, actively engaged, disengaged, or actively disengaged. That goes for wholesalers. It also goes for advisors. When an advisor knows that you're actively engaged in their business and bringing it to the next level, they're going to give you the investment of their time. So I would always carry around, and and I'm happy to share this model with anybody who wants to, email me at Deanna@theperspicacitygroup.com. I would carry around a wholesaler concierge model. Call me crazy, but I would say, this is what you're going to get. Here's what you're going to get when you work with me. I work with brand ambassadors, like Scotch brand ambassadors. I can set up an event for you, and I'll do all the work. This is what you get. And these are the levels that actually happen. And it was coaching. And it was also these seminars. Advisors and wholesalers who are listening, please make sure they're actively involved seminars. And what I mean by that is, I remember one quick story as an advisor at Morgan Stanley, super great guy. And it was a moment where I didn't know if he was going to actually hate me or if he was like, tell me more, This is like, he said, Deanna, you're a woman. I'm like, really? Thanks, Captain Obvious. And he said, can you do a women empowerment meeting for me? And for the first time, what wholesalers do not say is, I said, no. I was nervous. I got a little hot that I said no to him. I said, no. And he said, why? And I said, because you don't have the power to empower women. That's why.
Boom.
And he goes, what does that mean? So I talked to him about and this is one of the seminars that I have, you have to engage before they come to a seminar, actively engage them when at the seminar. And then you have to have a purpose why that halo that you light stays lit. So I said, telling them 51% of business owners are women doesn't mean anything. Actively engage them and light something in their own life. And then he and I started doing seminars together. I have a personal or individual strength seminar, and it was great. So having the ability to say no, but with a purpose as far as why, it was really empowering. I was a little nervous though.
I don't see you being nervous. I think you're genuine and tough. But I appreciate you sharing that with us. You did mention something that's kind of interesting, and it really goes around. This is what you get when you work with me,
Sure.
and yeah. But what if your product just is not, like, love you, Deanna, love you, love to do seminars and all that, but I can't sell this stuff. You got a bunch of broken tools in your bag. What happens to a wholesaler then, or what is a way to overcome that?
You got to find the one that can use it. And a quick story for you was, everybody thinks everybody's product should be in everybody's investment should be everywhere. That's not always the case. So remember when we were kids, we would take that square peg and try to jam it into like the circle where it didn't belong. If it doesn't belong in there, go find the square space where it belongs. And I remember one of my managers, we used to always walk around and say, every single advisor uses mutual funds. No, they don't. No, they didn't. So yes, they do. Yes, they do. I said, okay. So my husband, who is an advisor, runs an extremely healthy practice. We were out one night and I said, oh, hey, Michael, which is my husband's name is Michael. I said, can you tell my Mr. Manager here how much you manage in a mutual fund business? And they manage by about $1.5 billion, less than 5 million. I said, so I wouldn't waste my time with that person. So rather than trying to jam that square into the circle, just go find the square where it belongs.
that brings me back around to another point I wanted to make earlier. To be a manager and to invest all of this time, energy, effort to nurture and to lead up, not just manage down to your wholesalers and all that. Why do it? Isn't it a lot easier, faster, just for me to find some mini me's that understand my MO, that talk like me, think like me, and we can go out there and get it done? Isn't that a much, I guess, a much more simple way to run a wholesale team, or is that naive to think you can do that?
I don't like that model. I love diversity of thought, and like, because imagine being around the same table, people telling the same stories. There's absolutely no room for growth. I can tell you, I learned, I'm throwing out a number, 95% of my skills from my peers that were different from me, not somebody who was like me. Because we can just walk around and pound ourselves in the chest and say how amazing we are. But when someone says, well, here's how I do it a little bit different, that's what I can learn from. So sitting around the table with the same people, no, it's like picking a presidential cabinet. You can't pick the same people because nothing's really going to get done. So I believe in, I don't like exactly like conflict. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not sure if my personality comes across as that, but like, I think conflict is necessary for a resolution. I don't like conflict for the sake of conflict, but I think if you have conflict for the sake of resolution, then you can come to a common ground and build something amazing.
Now, what about the internal external relationship? Should that be a mini me situation, or should that be diversification and synergy? And then with that, if this internal wants to become an external, aren't they going down the wrong path if they're not trying to be just like their external? What do you think about that?
So can I answer that in two ways? So I'm actually, right now, I'm coaching an internal and external team. They need to learn how to work cohesively together. Anytime I'm coaching people, I have them take that strengths profile. It can't be any different. And I got on the phone with them and I said, this is amazing. You guys complement each other in the best way possible. And when I explained the two and how they can be magical together, it made so much sense. I just say, all the wholesalers that are listening, please, let's leave the ego away. We were all on that desk, I think, at one point in time, and that phone gets really heavy. Light them up, feed their motivators, find out what's important to them so that you can work on such an elevated level versus this, let me tell you what to do, schedule for me. Why don't you just find out who they are as a person and what they actually want to do and help them get there, because they're going to appreciate and want to work for you even harder. So my relationships with my internal wholesalers were always really dynamic because I listen to them too. Give them a minute. They have ideas. They may be at a different generation than you are, maybe the different lifestyle, maybe they bring something different to the table. And again, bring something to the table so somebody else wants to set it for you.
Yeah, and I have a challenge, and I've always had this with my experience, is that what is the internal wholesaler? Are they a salesperson? Are they a scheduler? I mean, really, what do you see out there as the best, call it, job description or duties of a great internal wholesaler, as opposed to just not even having one?
Oh, a great internal wholesaler. Listen, it's the engine and what makes you drive. Because if they're not good, it's like we had said before, people walk away not because of a product, but because of experiences. If that internal wholesaler does not have a reason to be picking up that phone and calling that advisor and going through the gatekeeper and having the advisor pick up the phone and wanting to stay on the phone with them, it dies, right? So it's really making sure that they have an even part to that partnership, and that accountability is huge. And bringing ideas to the table, but ask them to empower them. You have to say, hey, if you were out here, how would you be doing this? You might have this crazy aha moment, but maybe they were too intimidated by you to share that. Ask them. And that just makes a much better synergized team.
Yeah, I think that there are some polarization topics that you would probably get a lot of pushback from a seasoned external wholesaler, and go, internal wholesaler, you can't give me advice because you've never walked up to the door. So it's a little bit of it's not a science. I think it's more of an art to get that. What do you think about the call it automation of the external wholesaler? Back when you had to have Rand McNally, you had to have certain skills. The advisor, they need to see you. Well, nowadays, a lot of times external wholesalers are not getting the meetings for a myriad of reasons. is it a threat to their existence, this hybrid wholesaler, this computer-based wholesaler model?
It is. It's definitely, it's a threat, but it's not the death. And I will fight with swords and guns ablazing to keep the wholesaler model alive because it's unbelievably important. But you have to bring something. You have to be able to, like, I brought coaching out there, which not one wholesaler was doing. And some wholesalers were like, I heard you're coaching or something, the advisors. I'm like, yes, I am, buddy, So it is purposeful. The relationship, I mean, there has to be human contact. There has to be a reason why someone opens up that door for you anyway, and bring something to the table. It could be that wholesaler concierge model, which you're not going to get from a computer. It's, make sure when your investment's down, when the market's down 700 points and it's affecting some of their investments, that's when you're the product person. Don't ever hide under the desk with a bulletproof vest on and a helmet, hiding in down markets. You need to be visible. I wouldn't call the advisor and ask for a meeting that day, but just a little quick, hey, what can I do for you? And it's about elevating them. And I think, yes, if you can show your alpha what you bring to the table, you're always going to be relevant. Always. And I don't know, I don't believe computers take over people.
Yeah, it's definitely a relationship game. But I do see a lot of firms trying to cut costs, and there's a lot of banter out there that wholesaling is dead. And that's part of the reason why I started this show, was because there is some great value in what you do bring. And we are in a relationship business, and even as humans, we are relational. So I appreciate that. So you talk about this strengths profile, strengths finder certification, all of this. What are your top 5? What are you?
Aha! So individualization, learner, restorative, relator, and responsibility.
Wow.
Do you have your top 5?
Oh, come on now. Competition.
You wouldn't ask if you knew, did you?
Achiever, focus, activator, and of course, I think the qualification for every wholesaler is winning others over. Yeah. So yeah, I was introduced to the Strengths Finder profile by my coach, Dr. John Rhodes, and this was had to be 2005. So the reason why I bring this up is to not only demonstrate that I'm a fan and believe in it, but also I think it changes. Like, I believe if I took the test today, my answers would be different, and maybe my top 5 strengths will have changed. So how do you address that when you're dealing with with the profile? How do you put things in place to kind of do a compass check to make sure that we're still relevant, as a coach or as a leader?
So we're evolving as humans every day, right? And we have different happenings in our life, different barriers that were put in front of us. So I always say, so everything that I do, whether I'm working with a small business with their culture strengthening program, or working with financial advisor teams or wholesalers, I always start with those strengths so I can understand who they are innately. But I do ask, have you ever taken the profile before? And if it's before 5 years ago, I have them take it again. And I will say the majority of the time, there are about 2 of the strengths that go from 5 to the top 10. And it's because everybody evolves and everybody changes and different things happen in your life and different priorities happen.
Or is it because I'm gaming the test?
And you can't game it.
And I know where, there's 36 of these strengths. I know which ones that I want to be strong in. So therefore, when I answer the questions, I'm leaning that way. That's not possible the second time.
Listen, Dr. Don Clifton, when he put this out there almost 3 decades ago, said it's been an algorithm that's been scientifically proven. A little secret, if anybody listening wants to hear this, is it not only takes the answers, it calculates how long it takes for you to answer the question, which feeds into the algorithm, into what innately makes you. So I remember, so I'm not a skeptic, but I'm a realist. And when I was looking to get certified in something and I found StrengthsFinder, I said, okay, prove it to me. So I took the assessment. When I had a coach, I said, if I wrote a diary, you guys just read it. If I wrote a diary, you just read it back to me. And if, and I also feel if somebody wants to scam that test or do that for fun, they're not a client that I want anyway. Can I say that in more blunt?
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. You're not nervous. That's great. That is great. Let's talk a little bit about the public speaking.
Mhm.
profile that you have. I feel like we could go for hours, and I do respect your time. So public speaking, I run a course on persuasive presentations, and it is I believe it's the cornerstone for any good kind of a sales presentation, any kind of a relationship building. So tell us about your platform and how you create these master professional speakers, and maybe, even touch on the 3 C's that you mentioned that are important with that regard.
Yeah. So if I could just say why I started this program, it's because when I stopped wholesaling, I took a lot of inventory about what we did as high performing executives, what we did every day, and what came not easy to us, but over time we did it like it was nothing. Where it became hard for other people, and it was presenting. I mean, I would get up in front of Wells Fargo, UBS, one of the hardest audiences, and every day, maybe 3 times a day, and I didn't think about it. But when I read articles that it's, the fear, number one is death, and number two is presenting, I'm like, wait a minute, let me help you do that, and it's all in, prepping and planning and understanding why you're even up there. So if I can help somebody master something that they fear, oh my gosh, that's a day that's amazing. What I do is I developed a program, and of course it starts with strengths, because of my individualization, I really truly care about people who they are innately first, so I can help them connect to their confidence and their courage and being just present as well. So I have an accelerated program for salespeople, right? So for people like us or people that have been in front of groups, and then I have a 2-day program for companies that want to help so for example, you had said it before too. I've gotten a couple phone calls from internal, not salespeople, but some of the product people who have to start selling now, which is a very different suit for them to wear. And I started a presentation once, and I had a guy get up, and I had a woman get up, and I said, "Can you guys switch shoes?" And they said, "Oh, okay." So she walked 10 feet. Actually, she walked, pretty easily. He couldn't even fit in her heels. I said, "Stop. Are you comfortable in those shoes?" "Absolutely not." So stop trying to fill other people's shoes. So when you become a presenter and you're up there, you got to be yourself. You have to deliver what the audience actually needs to hear. The presentations aren't about you. They're about the audience. They're about the passion. They're about the feeling and what they leave the meeting with. Um, so when I found some sitting in the audience listening to how people were presenting, I wanted to fix it. I'm natural restorative, so I wanted to fix it. So that's how was born. And if I can elevate somebody's presentation skills or sales skills, it would be fantastic. And it's not always about getting up in front of a group. It's about building confidence and why you're there. Right now, I'm in the running to do a workshop within a big corporation. They're not in sales, but they do have to deliver to their upper management. They don't really know how to do it. Hopefully that answered your question, but it's curtailed to the individual too.
So do you think that every wholesaler needs to be able to be that public speaker and talk to the forum, or are there different types of wholesaling? My experience, I've had a great peer, and she was a dynamo one-on-one. She walked into someone's office, she was getting the business, she made friends, great. But you put her on the stage and put the spotlight on there to where she wasn't able to get that interaction, and she literally froze like a deer in the headlights. So can you help a wholesaler do that, or would you recommend they kind of figure out which one's best for them and maximize that one?
I think you have to be a public speaker. I do. I just think because you have to speak with intention, you have to use intentional language. I think that you have to have a presence. You have to be able to command a room. One-on-one is great, but mastering being able to be in front of people. And I was actually just working with this woman, and she doesn't like to be in front of an audience. She gets very nervous. And I said, "Why?" And she said, "I'd rather be one-on-one," just like you had just said. So I said, I just tweaked it a little bit, and I said, what if you're up in the room, up in front of the room, and you ask for a pinch of thank yous? So it's not a big crowd. It's just look at people individually and look at them thanking you for either a smile or a clap or a nod of the head, and you'll become a lot more comfortable. So to answer your original question, I think you do have to be a speaker. You have to have some kind of command. And if you're a boring speaker, you're still a speaker. You can always make that better.
Yeah, that's interesting. I might have a, I might argue with you a little bit about that and saying that, um, it's very difficult to be something that you're not, and you can raise money and you can be a great wholesaler without having to be up in front of an auditorium. And sometimes the person that's in front of the auditorium, they miss that little bit of connectivity, and they're going to call you Deanna because they don't know you. They don't know that it's Dina. So we could have some dialogue, maybe over that scotch you mentioned
Oh, I
later.
love it. Yeah, I became a Scotch drinker from wholesaling, by the way, because I was so
Yeah.
sick of wine tastings that I started doing Scotch tastings, and I hated the smell of it. Now my husband doesn't even know who I am. Sometimes I come home, pour a Scotch. I have my own Scotch glass, and you know.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. I will tell you though, I haven't, I really, I'm not the big drinker anymore. In fact, I rarely drink because I've developed gout, which is, yeah, it's a wholesaler nightmare, frankly, but too many steaks and asparagus and drinks and not enough gym time doing that. So you kind of pay the price, but I'm good to go now. I just got to be careful of it. But
Sure.
one last thing about these speaking dynamics or
Sure.
principles. The biggest one that I really embrace that you said is that a well-prepared speaker is seen as fully knowledgeable, passionate, and purposeful. Not one memorable presentation has been delivered by a speaker who just wings it.
Can't wing it.
So let me ask you this question. I don't have any time to practice, right? I'm like Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice, right? I'm out there actually delivering 2, 3 presentations, public seminars, if you would, per week. I'm actually doing lunch meetings, 3, 4 a week. I'm actually doing these things. Is that good enough preparation?
I think as a wholesaler, you're always preparing, because you're always reading, you're always kept up to speed on what's happening. And I think that the way wholesalers normally deliver their presentations, they're formatted the same way. They're just slotted in with different information. Have you ever taken Fusion? You remember
Oh
the old
gosh.
Fusion
Yeah.
presentations?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up because you brought up Fugent as your online platform back in the day. Yeah, Fusion. Yeah, for sure. What you're gonna tell them, what you
So
can tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Yep.
yeah, so I loved that. That was that. I mean, my conversations with my, with people became better, but it needs to be perspicacity, if that's the right word, because
Well done.
rather than getting up, and I think this is actually even speaks to what you're saying, where somebody only speaks to individuals and they're better at it. Um, Public speaking no longer is, let me tell you what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you why I'm going to tell you that. It's so much more conversational. People do not want to be spoken at anymore. They want to be spoken with. And that relaxes everybody in the room. And so I think that being prepared, right? And then also having that prep time where, because I actually have, there's 25 specific questions before you even begin to write a presentation, which is super important. I'd love to talk to you about your program too, to see how maybe I can complement yours, you can complement mine. Let's do it together, Mike.
Sure. Sure.
So there's even 25 questions even before you start planning it. And then, my program is like how Fusion was, but now it's elevated or modernized. I would say it's still one page. So if you're bringing it to an office, just change the story. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Wholesalers, financial advisors. Dina has an article with her top 10 questions out of the 25. It's on her LinkedIn profile. So check her out on LinkedIn. And she's written 5 or 6 articles, maybe 7 now. And this is a great one. It's the top 10 questions. Things like, why do you care about the topic? Well, you can't fake it. If you're out
yeah.
there and you're trying to fake it, people will see it. You know this. And there's 9 other ones. What is the wow factor of your presentation? You need that climactic thing that's very memorable. I would say to someone that asked me the question that I asked you, that you are naive if you think that you can just not prepare and you're gonna learn how to present by presenting. It's a sophomoric mentality, and it's birthed out of the idea of being too busy to prepare. You're busy doing, not busy learning. That's limiting. And I recommend that wholesalers and financial advisors actually book in time to practice and to literally present to the mirror, literally present to themselves in the car, and to have their script so well done. This guy, Zig Ziglar, you might have heard of him. He would practice his entire presentation before every presentation. You might have heard another guy, Huel Brenner,
Mm-hmm.
fellow handsome, follically challenged man, he would practice the king and I every day for a couple of hours. That's why he was the best in that. So I would encourage you, wholesalers and financial advisors, to definitely carve out and make time to practice. Stephen,
And if
go
and
ahead.
just one other thing too is like, it goes down to even the granular level. Like so I'm actually working with a financial advisor team right now who does finals presentations for 401k plans. And when I asked them, what is your prep? They didn't have it. And I know them. So I laughed a little bit and I was like, what do you mean you don't prep? And so he's like, that's why you're here. We don't know, they have billions of dollars with 401k plans, but now they have pretty stiff competition. You gotta prep. You have to prep. And because if you don't, you know your topic, every fear is going to come to the surface of your face and you're going to flop as much as, you feared you would.
Yeah. And even if you don't flop, I really truly believe that good is the enemy of great. And you might be a good presenter, you might be a good wholesaler, but as you know, Deanna, if you don't practice and if you don't invest into yourself and if you don't learn, you'll never be great. You'll never be, dare I say, awesome. Hey, let's shift gears here. I love talking with you. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure that everybody's going to really enjoy the episode. But tell us, what does the future look like for Perspicacity? I blew it. I knew I was going to do it one of these times. Your firm.
Perspicacity.
Perspicacity. Jeez, oh Pete. See how much I practiced that? Obviously not enough. But I did.
See, you got caught.
Perspicacity. Yeah, I just wasn't focused. What does the future look like the next 5, 10, 15 years before you hit full adulthood?
Yeah, so the next 3 years, so I'm still in my laboratory of ideas. I'm still in my laboratory. I'm a super needs-based individual. I always have been. I was always a needs-based wholesaler, so, I probably mastered the one-on-one, I would say, than I did the big presentations. Even though I think I was pretty good at both. So I kind of get what you're saying with your friend with the one-on-ones. But so in 3 years, it's going to be extremely purposeful in that, everything has been born. Like right now, I'm a diagnostician for financial advisor teams. I'm no longer coaching them, and I will if they're really on board. But why I like the diagnosis of advisors is because let me just dive in. Let me see through my program how we can better connect you to your clients. And there's so many things that are born from these. Like I have a program called Better Connections Program using strengths because I'm such a strengths dork. And I build profiles now for advisors to get them to know better, to get to know their clients better. There's an average of 11 conversations people have to have with people just to get to know them. What if I can off the bat get you to know them a lot better? So that this culture strengthening program, I'm a huge believer in these small businesses and just giving them what these huge corporations already do, giving them that opportunity. And the master presentation workshop is something so near and dear to my heart. It's going to stay. So those are the 3 business units, and I think they're just going to get stronger. And anybody that needs help in elevating what they're doing, if I can do it, I'd love to help. If I can't, I have absolutely no problem, bring you over to coaches that I already know in my circle.
Oh, I definitely wish you much luck on that one. Let's bring it home. So I have 2 signature questions, Tina, that I ask every guest.
Now I'm nervous.
Yeah, don't be nervous. I mean, there's no wrong answer, but some answers are better than others, frankly. So you're against some stiff competition if you're going to regard that. But as you know, my strength is a competition, so it's important to me probably more than you. But let's start with the first one. Okay, Tina. So you're on your phone. And on the other end of the line is 20-year-old Deanna, and I don't think Farrugia is your maiden name. What's your maiden name?
It is my maiden name.
All right, so 20-year-old Deanna Farrugia is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
You got a couple minutes with her. What advice do you give to your younger self?
The advice to give to my younger self is you're going to be okay and stop being so hard on yourself. That was the big thing. So I actually had self-induced anxiety my entire career, like do it better. I would just be kinder to myself because the choices you will make, 20-year-old Deanna, are going to get you to where you're supposed to be. So just enjoy the ride. Don't make it a bumpy one because that's a self-fulfilling one.
Wow. Well done. Question number 2. This is a little more fun. If I could grant you any legitimate superpower, which one do you choose? And what do you do with it?
Superpower. Oh, I kind of feel like I'm a superhero already. I'm just kidding. Superpower. Oh my gosh. I think it would be to heal people emotionally and physically. I mean, I've never been asked that before, and I've never even said those words before, but if I can heal people emotionally by one touch of my hand, that would be a superpower for me.
Yeah, it's well said. And you're definitely you're strong, what I call the love emotional language indicator. And I appreciate you for doing that. You're always looking to help people. Hey, I want to tell you too, I appreciate you for being on the show today. Appreciate you and your team's work and all of your years of peer relationships and leadership for the wholesalers that are out there. Definitely appreciate it for that. And we all wish you much success, both now and in the future, Deanna. And as we say on the Awesome Wholesaler Experience podcast, it's about the journey, and definitely wish you well on yours. Look forward to seeing you again soon. And a huge thank you to everyone that's out there tuning in today. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to join that notification squad, just click on the little bell to make sure that you never miss another episode. Thank you again for supporting the show. Thanks for tuning in today. And of course, thanks for being awesome. Good night, everybody.